Hi, and welcome to the Checkpoint series, tackling mental health issues using the power of video games. This show was proudly funded using Kickstarter and is sponsored by Way Down Deep, as well as all of the incredible companies you can see here. My name's Dr. Jennifer Hazel, and I'm the founder of Checkpoint, as well as a practicing psychiatric doctor. Together with Dr. Shelley and registered nurse Darren, our goal is to support the mental health of the gaming community and to teach how games can be used for good. So many awesome people have donated to make this happen, including psychologists, psychiatrists, nurses, game developers, journalists, and of course, you, the gamers. Thank you. Over the course of the next 20 or so episodes, we'll teach you how to recognize the symptoms of mental health issues, learn what they mean, and we'll cover the whens and hows of getting help. We'll also be sharing the stories of amazing individuals who have come forward to advocate for mental health care and reduce stigma.
Depression for me feels like everything is a little bit tougher.
Any excuse to hate yourself is a great excuse.
Whenever I can, I advocate for therapy.
Video games allow you and give you the opportunity to control a situation.
When you get to play as someone like Commander Shepard and make them, the paragon of humanity, you feel like, because you are the one making those choices, and that's what I would do in that situation.
Remember, at any time, you can donate to the cause at checkpoint.org.au. We can't do this without your generosity. Thank you. Okay, so there's a lot to cover, so let's just get straight into it. This episode isn't about any one particular condition, but about mental health in general. We'll bust some crazy myths, lay down the basics, and bring you some simple mental health hacks to find and get helped by proper treatment. Before we get too deep, let's start with the basics. What is mental health? The World Health Organization defines mental health as a state of well-being in which every individual realizes their own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to their community. That's a mouthful. Basically, what that means is that mental health is where you are on this ever-changing scale of personal fulfillment. Any one person can be anywhere on this scale from day to day. This week, you can be on top of the world, fighting every challenge with a smile. And next week, you might face a new hurdle that you fall down at. What's important is what you do next. What I like about this definition is that it doesn't actually mention illness at all. The reason that I like that is because that means you can be mentally healthy while having a mental illness. That sounds bizarre, hey? Think about the definition though. It says nothing about not having depression or not being anxious or not being on medication. You can flourish with mental health issues. It's all about how you deal with them, whether you're coping, if you feel productive, and part of a community.
I think that there's a misperception that successful people or creative people have conquered these things in some way. The people you love, probably a lot of the people you love who make things you love, are dealing with a lot of the same issues you're dealing with. And I guess the message to take away is that it doesn't have to keep you from the things you want to do. It's a problem to deal with, but it just takes a lot of work.
When I was suffering from mental illness, I felt like there was no cure. There was nothing, that could make me better. And I think to some extent that's true. There's not a cure, but I think that's okay once you learn the tools to deal with it. So I think, my daily life is harder than people who don't suffer from mental illness. It kind of sucks to realize that. If you just accept that, as who I am, and everyone has their cross to bear, I feel like I can live, a fulfilled life, a very happy life. My mental illness doesn't stop me from doing anything that I want to do.
5 things you need to know about mental health. Number 1, mental health issues are very common. Current statistics suggest that depending on where you are, between 1/3 and half of people will have a mental health issue at some point in their life, and 1/4 of people will experience symptoms this year. Number 2, having a mental health issue doesn't make you crazy, scary, or dangerous. This is a negative stereotype that has been commonly used by the media as a cheap plot device. The truth is, people with mental illnesses are 3 times more likely to be a victim of crime and 5 times more likely to be a victim of assault. 3, most treatments are done on an outpatient basis. That means that the person is at home, not in hospital, and they come to visit the doctor or other health professionals at appointments. This way, we can help folks to stay at home with their loved ones rather than staying in a psychiatric unit. In fact, 95% of people that would have been admitted in the 1960s are treated at home now. 4, sometimes it feels like there is simply no help out there. But things for mental health are getting better and better, and all you need to do is know where to look. Most countries have a number of services, non-profit organisations like us, websites, and other resources for people to get help for cheap or even free. We have a list of them that we're constantly adding to at checkpoint.org.au/global. 5, not everybody needs medication. If a person is functioning to some degree, like if they're managing to do some work, able to get out of the house and do what they need to do, like shopping and cooking, and are able to have reasonable conversations socially, generally the first thing we try to help should be some form of psychotherapy.
Whenever I can, I advocate for therapy. Having that space to talk to someone and realizing how it's different than something like having a good friend. It is a unique environment, I found, to be in with a therapist who is 100% there for you. It's by definition not a mutual relationship in terms of emotional labor. A deeper or a more thorough feeling of trust and safety than in any other environment. Because even with a best friend, they're still a part of your life. They know your friends. Something in the back of your head's like, well, what if they say something, or what if in 5 years we're not friends anymore? Whereas professional therapists are a black box. It goes in, it doesn't come out. So
there are 4 main types of psychotherapy. Supportive psychotherapy. Think casual mobile game. This type of game has a short duration and does a lot of hand-holding. It walks you through the basics and doesn't challenge too much. This is used in times of crisis, when everything feels like it's going wrong and you can't cope. This type of therapy helps to support the person through that rough patch and reinforces their own positive coping mechanisms. It's short-term, and it doesn't look to change how you cope, instead gives you a helping hand and boosts your own ability to get through. Cognitive Behavioural Therapy, CBT. Think puzzle platformer. Early on, this type of therapy teaches you the instructions, how to think about each level or each session. As you get further in, you have to use what you've learned to progress. It can be hard work, but it's also very rewarding. CBT helps you to learn how to handle specific situations and challenges in life by adapting the way you think. With the therapist, you work together to know how it is you think about certain situations, like if you have a specific phobia of heights, for example, that thought, I am definitely going to fall down and get hurt. You're then able to challenge and change these thoughts. So in that example, you could replace that with, I am worried about falling, but it is very unlikely to happen. Or, I have never fallen before. With CBT, your childhood and development is not really looked at in much detail. Instead, it's mainly focused on the here and now. It generally takes about 12 to 24 weeks, and after it's all done, you may need top-up sessions.
At one point in my career during Bioshock Infinite, I also dealt with a severe obsessive-compulsive episode that went on for about 1.5 years. That was debilitating. That was the last time where I was like, I don't know how I'm going to even get through this, and I had found great help. through CBT, which is sort of exposure therapy. There was a stimulus that was causing me a great deal of anxiety, and I had a great therapist who sort of helped me through recognizing the problem and then slowly and safely confronting the problem, and it worked amazingly well.
Long-term psychodynamic psychotherapy. Think MMORPG. Long, expansive, and without one definitive endpoint. Lots of exploration and personal development. This intense type of therapy is a lot more comprehensive and analytical of you as a person. Your therapist acts as a guide, and you look at the past as it relates to present situations. A good example would be that every time you get into an argument with your partner, you get really mad and upset because it feels deep down like you're having a fight with your mum or dad. With time, you learn to reflect on your emotions rather than reenacting them. You essentially learn from the past to avoid repeating it. And category 4 is the rest. There are actually heaps of different types of therapy. Some are really thoroughly practiced and evidence-based, others are newer, more experimental. As a field, we're constantly growing, changing, and learning. Some of the other types of therapy a professional might recommend include ACT, which is acceptance and commitment therapy, DBT, which is dialectical behavioral therapy, mindfulness, interpersonal psychotherapy, and many more.
I ended up going into a therapy program, which turned out to be really, really great. But it was like a group therapy thing, DBT. It wasn't like right after the course, everything was amazing, but the course was great because it was giving me like terminology for things that I didn't know, I didn't have words for. I was just like, oh, that thing. Now there's a word for it. Oh, you can put a label on it. Now you can discuss it and you can think about it.
My first experience with therapy was in couples therapy. I sort of got into it or got introduced to therapy and sort of over the hump of the stigma of therapy by doing it for the sake of the relationship I was in. And then I think I just realized I had more to unpack than I thought, and that it was beneficial to me for so many reasons to be doing that, not just to solve one problem, but just as a check-in and to have a place to process some things.
I was, finishing my first year in college in like the summer of 2001, and I'm like, I'm hanging out with my friends and I'm having these thoughts and I'm not really enjoying it. So I started getting therapy, but things just kept getting worse and worse. But finally in 2003, I had, graduated from college and started a full-time job here in LA, and I saw a therapist who said, you have obsessive compulsive disorder, here is exposure response therapy, and this is how it works, and this is what you have to do. And I mean, it was amazing. It was life-changing. And I mean, the therapy was very hard because basically you have to sort of live in your anxiety. You have to, deal with your obsessions and not give in to the compulsions. But, just like he said, the anxiety does subside. And, if you keep doing this, then the obsessions sort of lose their control over you. And I mean, it was amazing just, how quickly it was able to improve my life.
With all these different types of therapy, not one size fits all. Therapy is as varied as video games are, and as varied as you are too. I personally don't really enjoy RTS games, but I love an RPG. Someone else might be the complete opposite. If you've tried CBT and it didn't work, that doesn't mean that nothing will ever work. All brains are wired differently, so maybe ACT would be the thing for you. It's hard, it takes time, and it can be frustrating, but keep at it. Eventually, you'll get there.
Sometimes your first doctor isn't gonna be the right fit. Sometimes your first treatment isn't gonna be a right fit. Just don't give up. Please don't give up. It's so easy. It's so easy to be like, well, I tried, and go back to bed. But don't do that. Just please, I'm begging you. There's help out there that you can find, and if you have to switch doctors, then switch doctors. If you have to switch treatment, then switch treatment. If medicine isn't working for you, fine. You don't have to use medicine. You can use diet and exercise, and it's gonna be very hard to stay motivated, but you gotta do it. You have to do it. Please do it. Don't give up.
Remember, A therapist is there to help you. You wouldn't carry on paying a subscription to a game if it wasn't fun anymore. If you feel the person's missing the point, let them know. Any therapist who wants to help people will be grateful to be told they're barking up the wrong tree. Finding a good one can be a bit like a lock and a key. It can take some time.
That's the end of this session. We'll continue this conversation next week. You were lucky, Ethan. It's very rare to survive such a traumatic accident.
I don't exactly feel lucky, Doctor.
But it's something that not only do you have to work hard at to get to the point, but you have to continue to work in order to maintain, sort of the level you're at. Especially with like exposure response therapy, it's, the hardest thing in the world to do, and it'd be very easy to say, oh, maybe this isn't for me, maybe it doesn't work, but it really does if you work hard at it.
Therapy is hard work. This is a journey of self-improvement that can change your life, but it won't be a quick fix and it won't happen overnight. You can't beat Sephiroth at level 15. You need to keep at it. Keep attending appointments, do your homework if they've set it, and make sure you try to have an open mind. Remember, if you think you have a psychiatric problem, it's so important to go to your GP or family doctor early on. There is a small chance you might have another sort of medical illness like a vitamin deficiency, thyroid problem, epilepsy, or an infection. It's important to note that this is extremely rare. However, it is easy for a GP to rule out many of these by a simple examination, a routine blood screen, and sometimes a CT scan of your head. All of this can be pretty overwhelming, but remember, you're not alone. We at Checkpoint know the gaming community can come together and support one another. We'll help you to understand about all sorts of different mental health issues and how to tame your black dog. And finally, we'll explore how games could help with that. Together, we'll change the future of mental health for people who play and make games forever.
You're not alone. There are people next to you. There are people in front of you and behind you. 1 in 4 people has a mental illness. Please talk to someone. Talk to me, talk to your parents, talk to your friends. You're not alone, and you don't have to do this alone.
You're not a freak. You're a human being, and sometimes our bodies malfunction and do things that we don't deserve. Go and talk to somebody to help you understand what's happening with you and to hopefully help you through it.
If you are struggling with mental health issues, whether it's panic attacks or depression or whatever, know that you're not alone. Know that a lot of people go through this. There's no shame in getting help for it. And that's a really, really hard step for a lot of people to take. And I mean, it certainly was for me, but I'm so glad I did it.
It's very important to know that when you speak up, that people are there to hear you and to listen to you. And a lot more people than you realise understand what you're going through. And I could just imagine how good it would be if everyone felt safe in being that open about it, like they would if they had the flu or had broken their leg. Just because a mental illness is in your mind and people can't see it doesn't mean that it's any less real or, makes you an unreliable person or, makes you less worthy of getting help.
There's no shame in asking for help, and you shouldn't have to do this alone. It's a scary place and it is a lonely place, and it doesn't have to be that way.
Very well said.
Thank you.
If you've enjoyed this video, please consider contributing to Checkpoint. There's a donate button on the screen right now. As a non-profit, every cent we make goes back into making an awesome mental health support community for you, and we really can't do it without your generosity. Remember, you can also listen to our interview podcast by searching the Checkpoint Podcast into your favourite podcasting service. And when you're done with that, please come and join us with a Checkpoint membership. They start off at an incredibly low price of free. With it, you can meet like-minded people, get mental health support, get access to heaps of merchandise giveaways, convention meetups, and exclusive content. Plus, you get the warm fuzzy feeling of being part of the Checkpoint family. That's all for us today. Please remember you can subscribe and be notified of new videos. But until then, stay safe and we'll see you next time.